Hello and welcome to the full moon forecast for the full moon at 13 degrees of Cancer happening in this new year, January 3rd of 2026. I am so excited to share this forecast with you, and this is my first time doing this live, so really excited to be here with a live audience, and we're going to just jump right into the chart. So let me pull that up. Okay, here we have our full moon in Cancer. So, just as a reminder, I do use an Aries rising, so we're not going to work with any of the house structure today, but we are going to be looking at the planets and aspects, of course, to that full moon. So, here's our full moon at 13 degrees of Cancer in 1 minute, opposing our sun at 13 degrees Capricorn. And it's getting quite crowded up here in Capricorn right now. We have Mars, we have Venus, we have Mercury having just entered just hours ago today. And all of these personal planets are right now opposing our moon. But our moon has an ally. Our moon's sitting right next to this Jupiter exalted in Cancer. So let's talk about what this axis represents, because of course we're all living in this Cancer Capricorn axis of Capricorn season. So we are dealing with this opposition between, let's start with the sun. Our sun in Capricorn is practical, it is grounded. We're in a feminine sign. This is receptive energy. And of course, this is very appropriate for our Western concept of New Year because Capricorn wants to get things done. It has ambitions, it has goals, it is trying to reach that top of the mountain or the depths of the water. And if any of you have listened to me, you know that I think Capricorn is one of the more misunderstood signs because Capricorn is a sign of extremes, and somehow it's been like jerry-rigged into this sign that is, must do the sort of climbing the pyramid and doing sort of the patriarchy feel. And that's not at all what Capricorn is. It is so much bigger than that. And right now we're getting our dose of this with all of our personal planets here. But opposing this practical, needing a sense of security, needing to go for the goals, the ambitions, reach for the extremes, see the potential with the hard work, with the endurance necessary. We're having our moon now in Cancer, and our moon loves being in Cancer. This is her home. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and so these two work really beautifully together. It's seamless energy, it's so effortless and juicy and very homey because Cancer is our divine feminine sign. I really view this sign as the sign of the goddess. But with the moon here, right, she is asking, okay, so you're going for all these ambitious, reaching for all these ambitious things and these goals that you're headed towards, and that's great. But have you considered caring for yourself, for your body, for the things that make you actually feel safe and secure at home? It's not just this outward reaching, going for extremes. Cancer reminds us to nurture as well, nurture our emotional bodies as well as our physical bodies, as well as our mental bodies. So we're being confronted here with these two ideas, and it might show up as mundane or as simple as, you're really having to come to terms with, I've been pushing so hard, and maybe I'm not quite ready to sink into these new year, new me goals that everybody is doing, these resolutions. And maybe I'd actually like to take a step back and winter and rest and, find our sense of calm, our sense of peace and security at home. Cancer is very much a sign of the home. And so we're being confronted with this idea, but this also might show up in the sense of a person and a relationship because we are dealing with an opposition. That person comes into our scope and confronts us with, well, have you been going about your goals? Have you been doing your Capricorn? Have you been putting in the work, the effort, the long-term endurance it takes necessary? Have you thought long-term, right? Because Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, and Saturn is concerned with time, there is that sense of endurance and stretching the longevity of where this sign is looking towards, working towards. It's concerned of legacy. What is it leaving behind when it passes? And Cancer is a bit more preoccupied with acting in the now to nurture the self, to make sure everybody's emotional needs are being met, to make sure that they're sustained. And so you might be in this position and feeling quite confronted or irritated even with this whole cacophony of Capricorn happening. Because again, with Venus here, this is our relationships as well as our finances underlining this. Have you thought about, your New Year's saving goals and what are you doing? What are you planning for 2026? Are you entering a new relationship this year, right? That pressure. And then we have Mars Mars up here, and Mars is telling us to act. Now, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It loves Capricorn because Mars is our action, our drive, and our desire, and it is headed toward something that it can actually finish. Mars is kind of known for let's get things started, let's get things going, but it never actually completes the task. So in Capricorn, we see that total culmination of start to finish and Mars really completing what its desire and drive is egging us toward. So it's also up there adding this further pressure to the moon. But remember, I talked about the moon has this ally of Jupiter. So we have this major opposition. I'm wondering out there, anybody who's watching this, comment and let me know if you're feeling maybe this push and pull from, is it society? Is it an actual relationship in your life? Is it just sort of the expectations of the season? I actually find personally, when I've been online lately, that a lot of the energy, at least in my algorithm that's showing up, is more towards this, hey, let's slow down, let's take care of our bodies. And Jupiter is like, this is our belief system because, of course, being a witch, being magically minded people, I find that a lot of us sort of really view that Aries ingress, that 0 degrees Aries point, as the true new year. Or also, we can consider Samhain as sort of that start to the year as well, where things are getting darker and winter begins. So I feel like the belief systems around the concept of the new year are really starting to be magnified. And there's this more of a push to actually let's take care of ourselves in the winter. Let's hold back. Yes, this is a time of celebration. We've made it to January 1st, but maybe let's reassess what this looks like. And so, how are we balancing that with all of the energies between the pressure of Capricorn says we got to get it done. We got to climb the mountain, and here we are. And I honestly think that because these planets are well supported in both statements, there's room for both of these things, right? It's not an or, it can be an and. So how are we finding this balance? Now, I want to take a look at a couple other things. So, all of this Capricorn energy is currently in a sextile here with this North Node, which is in Pisces. It's been in Pisces for the last several months over the last year. And also, it's in a trine here. Here's our trine symbol to the South Node in Virgo. And we're all kind of learning this story around the South Node in Virgo of we're letting go, we're shedding that sense of what is perfection, what is, categorizing, systemizing things so perfectly so nothing can go wrong, right? Unfortunately, our best laid plans never quite turn out that way. And so we're having to shed some of this constriction and trying to like make things exactly the way we want them in order to open to this sense of, first of all, grace and compassion with ourselves and a sense of faith that it's going to work out anyway. And so with all of this energy, you see that this is called a mystic rectangle. And so we have the sextile to the South Node from the Moon and Jupiter, the trine coming from all of our Capricorn planets to the South Node. And then vice versa, we have the trine from the Cancer Moon and Jupiter and the sextile coming. So you see this giant rectangle in the sky. That is a mystic rectangle. And it's not actually as mystical as maybe it sounds. But basically, when this happens, we have this beautiful flow of energy. When we have a trine, these are two elements that are in harmony, right? It's actually one element together in harmony, excuse me. So we have Virgo and Capricorn being in earth signs. We have Cancer and Pisces being in water signs. So they speak the same language, it's effortless and it's easy breezy beautiful. But the sextiles over here are another energy of collaboration. I kind of view this as like astrology's handshake. They say, yes, water and earth, we work well together. We grow things together. So we have this beautiful mystic rectangle of earth and water energies all working in harmony. Once again, adding to maybe it's a lot of cacophony of noise or pressure or ideas and beliefs, but truthfully, everybody's kind of working in this balance, in this flow of energy that's really asking us to evolve, because that is what our nodal axis is really questing us to do and asking of us, challenging us with. How do we shed what is no longer working for us, what needs to be let go, what needs to be let away in order to step into potentially this uncomfortable place that we're not used to, that we're growing into a little bit, but that we know is evolving us to be more peaceful, more compassionate, more grounded, more, I don't know, embodied in our practice, in our lives. So it's all working in this beautiful flow together. I absolutely love this full moon to start off our year. I think it's beautiful because we actually have a full moon that's kind of working in our favor here. Now, if you've been feeling a lot, if you've been feeling a lot of pressure, a lot of things going on, we did, as I said, just have that Mercury just today move into Capricorn. It has been for the last few days in actually a few weeks in Sagittarius, where it finally exited the sign of its retrograde, the retrograde we had back about a month ago. So we finally get this Mercury operating in a little bit more of a practical manner going forward, and I'm very encouraged by that. I think moving forward, we're going to feel a little bit more on top of ourselves, okay? But we've also had Mercury in this square with Saturn and Neptune. And this square to Saturn and Neptune, especially while it was in Sagittarius, is crazy. It's up, down, everywhere. Neptune is going to dissolve away any sort of mercurial clarity that we're hoping for. And Saturn, quite frankly, makes things pretty tough to hold on to and burdensome. So if you've been like feeling, oh my gosh, when is this year going to end? Can we step into the next year? I am happy to say this full moon happening in just 2 days from now is honestly kind of that culmination point where our eyes are opened. I think full moons are excellent spaces of awakening. So, how do we open? How do we awaken to maybe it's the psychic, symbols that we're receiving? Maybe it's messages from deity, from our ancestors, from our guides. How can we open to this sense and find a way to bridge all of this together? Understanding it is trying to guide us toward our own evolvement, whatever that looks like for you. Okay. So I don't want anyone to feel discouraged. Of course, full moons are a lot of energy, but I like that our full moon is with Jupiter in Cancer. Something I should mention as a good astrologer is Jupiter is going to expand all that it touches. So just be aware that while this might feel, maybe things are clicking into place, maybe you receive a really beautiful message and it's like, okay, yes, this is me stepping into security, stepping into flow, stepping into good energy. It might feel really overwhelming right now because Jupiter is going to take that emotion and make it a big deal, really expansive. So, as you're feeling this expansive emotion inside of you, just remember to allow yourself the space, the grace to grieve, to hold that emotion, to sit with it. Don't try to just dismiss it away, right? It is telling you something. Have you thought about thanking all of those pressuring emotions instead of trying to just shove them away? Because that kind of is that energy of Capricorn that just says, I can't deal with the emotions. They're too messy. It's too much right now. I need to just like focus on the thing in front of me. And there's a time and place for that, right? We can't let our emotions get caught up when we're going through a crisis or going through a hard time. But if possible, how can we make space for both? And Jupiter here in Cancer, doing its work in its exalted sign, is really asking all of us that with its transit going through the year. So, it's going to be in Cancer for 6 more months, and then it's going to move into Leo. That's going to be in June. Oh my gosh. I should mention, any of you out there listening, that I do have two forecasts for 2026 available via podcast form. The first is with Psychic Story, a Psychic Story podcast, and that is focused on the first 3 months of 2026, kind of a deep dive in there. And we talk a lot about sort of the spiritual psychic gifts of the charts. So definitely recommend that episode. And then also I did the full year forecast with the Bonfire Babble podcast. And I know some of my followers out there are avid listeners. So that has been posted for you. And I will be doing a class on this live as well. So with that, these are the major energies I am seeing for the full moon. And at this point, I would love to open it up to any questions that I have. I'm keeping an eye on all of our feeds here. So both my Zoom feed and my YouTube feed. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer. They can even be personal questions. If they're not too specific, I can try and answer a couple things. I would definitely take a look at Where is 13 degrees of Capricorn and Cancer in your chart? Because those are the two houses that are being activated with this full moon. You got to consider, okay, the sun's light is shining into your Cancer house. So that's going to probably receive more of it. But you've also had Jupiter there. Be really curious, anybody who knows their chart pretty well, where Jupiter's been acting in your chart. Be really curious, like how you've been feeling that over the last 6 months as it's been traversing through there, because the moon is about to come and really expand that and magnify it. And then, of course, the sun being in Capricorn, that's getting a lot of attention right now. So curious. Jupiter's been in your ninth. Yeah, wow, what a beautiful place for Jupiter, though, honestly, because Jupiter expanding up that house of exploration and philosophy and teaching, right? This is also the house of astrology, too. So welcome, like, to the class, because that's definitely there as well. So the moon being there, that's so interesting. It's a very expansive outward into the world, right? Like, how are we expanding our minds, our bodies, our experiences with other cultures globally? So it's a very Jupiterian house. I kind of view it very similar, not the same, but similar to Sagittarius, of course. And Jupiter in the eighth house, whew, girl. That- and Jupiter in the eighth house. Eighth house is a totally different energy, right? That's going to be a deeper, kind of similar to 12th house. Actually, I see that as well. The eighth house being that really intimate sense of privacy. And my mentor, Meredith from Soul Navigation, calls this the house of the bathtub, because there aren't very many people that we would get into a bathtub with. And that is what lives in that eighth house. That sort of private sense of, I don't want to look at that right now. Of course, there are some very deep things in this house, such as death and endings, but also sex is in this house. Taxes are in this house. So I'm curious how Jupiter's been affecting that in Cancer, kind of creating that protective shell of what is private, but then also expanding the emotional awareness around that. And I mentioned the 12th house as well. This kind of takes that into a more spiritual realm of, we're expanding what the belief system around how I view the unknown, how I am, interpret my space in the universe. How does that all fit? How does that work? It could look like, taking, and again, this is a private place as well. The 12th house isn't typically something that we see publicly. In fact, some people view it as the basement of the chart. So it's under cover here, and it's more of the subconscious realm that even we might not be totally aware of, but expanding that, sense of how are we dreaming? How are our psychic abilities working? So cool place for Cancer Jupiter to be in. And again, thinking of Cancerian protection, that shell, how do we protect ourselves in a psychic space? Putting up those boundaries, putting up the protection necessary to engage in receiving messages, right? And sending messages. Oh, and look at that. I have somebody from YouTube, Cancer in the sixth house. So that's going to be an expansion around uh, this is going to look like, well, your health is kind of one of the primary ones I see in this. I look at this house as the house of the day to day. So we're, doing our habits, our routines. We are, trying to keep ourselves healthy. This can look like a house of sickness because all of health is in that house. This is also the house of household pets as well. So closeness with small animals is here too. So Jupiter expanding that could be, sometimes it comes in the form of, oop, there was a health scare that I had to deal with, and now I need to protect, Jupiter and Cancer, protect myself from whatever that is by engaging in healthier routines and actions. But it can also look like just forming belief systems around that area of your life, or coming up with certain structures. And for Cancer specifically, this could look like, how am I sustaining myself? How am I nurturing myself in those actions, in those habits day to day? So, yes. Okay. Jupiter in Cancer doing its work. Everyone, it's moving into your next house this year. It's going to be entering Leo. And oh my gosh, if any of you have heard the 2026 forecasts, it's going to be crazy this summer. We have so much in air and fire. So I'm really relishing this full moon actually, because it's kind of our last, not last ever, of course, but one of those final beautiful moments of this earth and water energy with all of these outer planets. And we're getting this sort of last, like, let's grow something. Let's take a moment and pause and water our soil and see what happens, see what blossoms. And of course, being full moon, right? The magnitude of energy, there's lots of emotion involved. Also, I should mention too, because it's moon in Cancer, this is very reflective or nostalgic. It's looking backwards in time, and it's saying, where is my family roots from? Where have I come from? Maybe you're looking at ancestors right now and working with your ancestors. That would be really heightened with this full moon. So, again, being grace filled with ourselves, but I really just think that, what a moon to manifest on as we kick off this year, especially to sustain us, to help us with that endurance through that quick fire and air energy we have coming soon. Okay, look at that. Three of us watching. We have Jupiter in the fourth and in the seventh. Jupiter in the fourth is actually very much what I was just talking about. So that expansion of awareness around ancestors, around your family roots. This is also your home itself. It's kind of the comfy house of Cancer. So, doing improvements to your home, building new belief systems around where I should live, the community that I live in, but more specifically, this is like the sanctuary that I'm creating for myself. And then how has that been affected by my parents, my grandparents, like going back my extended family, and looking back into genealogy and even past lives as well. And then the seventh house, this is going to be Jupiter expanding the placement of relationships. So this is specifically like partnerships. I really look at this as, spouse or, romantic partners. This also could look like contractual partners. So business partners live in this house. It can look like even like a landlord or a roommate. So people that you have a close contract with, whether that be a romantic sort of contract. It can look like a really, really close friend too. This is where we network as well. So I wonder if my Jupiter in the seventh person has been especially busy and maybe needs to put some walls up and say, no, I can't actually take that on right now. If there's been some lessons in that, I'd be curious. Because that one, the seventh house can make you awfully busy when you have the Jupiter there. Love all these Jupiter questions. This is phenomenal. Yeah. So with that, I think there wasn't anything other than the Jupiter stuff jumping out at me for now. Does anybody have questions regarding magic or where this might be the full moon itself in those houses? And remembering all the different houses that we talked about, this is what that full moon is illuminating for you. If you're looking at performing some sort of magic on the full moon, that is a great place to start, but not necessary. If you don't feel called to that place in your chart, goodness knows I don't always listen to my natal chart when it comes to what magic I'm performing. But as a witch, of course, I let the intuition guide me, and what a beautiful full moon to do that on, honestly. Tapping into your intuition, tapping into your body with this one is going to be so beautiful and excellent for a practice. So all right. Well, with that, I would love to dive into some chart readings with my beloved Blue Hour subscribers I have over here. Oh, look at that. One more question. Let's talk one more question publicly. So the Saturn conjunct Neptune. Thank you. Yes, in reference to this. So the conjunction is going to be happening in Aries, and the Aries conjunction is also a cardinal sign, as is Capricorn and Cancer. So, with those two energies coming together, that birth point of 0 degrees Aries is so powerful. And again, this conjunction is happening later this year, just a few weeks away on February 20th. And so, when they come together at 0 degrees of Aries, they will be making a square to this full moon axis. So, I love that you brought this up because this axis right now being activated is kind of that we're thinking forward, we're thinking backward, we're ascending to our goals, we're descending into our sanctuary, we're having this sort of moment of awareness of where is our body in this space and time, what are we growing? And then we get this seed, February 20th, when Saturn and Neptune finally come together in Aries at 0 degrees. You can see they're very close together. They got really, really, really close in the summertime, and they spread out a little bit over their retrograde, and they're about to go conjunct one and only time in February. So with that square, that's going to be an activating energy. You can see some light squares in here. I have my aspects drawn. The bolder they are, the more exact they are. So these squares I didn't refer to today just because they are pretty light in color, which means that they're pretty far away from each other. There's a wider orb, so they're not going to be as effective. They're still at play, certainly, and they might affect your personal natal chart. But a square energy where this conjunction is going to happen is going to really activate this space. You might even be called back in a few weeks to this moment of, I learned that thing. I remember that thing, that message I received. This is going to be what sustains me through this new process. Now, this whole transit might happen and you're not even aware of it, to be honest, because Saturn Neptune, when Neptune is involved with anything, it's not loud. Neptune is the wave of an ocean, right? And as it comes in and it like dissolves the sand and dissolves whatever it touches, it glides in and it comes back out. So this is not a being hit with a tsunami. This is coming in really quietly into this space. And then as Saturn gets there, it just gets dissolved into that Neptune expression. So this whole transit could pass you by, and you're like, it's not like a Mercury where it hits you and it's like, whoa, this personal planet activated something. But what it is a moment of inspiration, innovation, a moment of just an idea, right? It doesn't have to be magnificent or huge, but it could be, right? It could be something that surprises you, but it might just kind of creep in. And maybe you think about this full moon that happened, and that's what engages you. And maybe not. Maybe it totally passes you by. But something about that seed is asking you to step into this Aries place. And what is Aries? Aries is independent. Aries is fierce. Aries is a warrior on the front lines and it says go first. It doesn't even wait to say go. It just goes, right? And it thinks about the consequences later. So while that idea, that inspiration is slowly permeating in you, right? It's going to be in conflict potentially with whatever you're coming in here. So maybe it's going to really force you to get a system together where you have to be more ambitious than you've ever had to be before. Maybe it makes you a little uncomfortable. Maybe you do have to sacrifice some sort of comfort, right? Or nurturing yourself in order to go to that place. But there's something about it that honestly is exciting, invigorating, is inflaming in a way. It is Mars ruled sign in Aries, so that is going to be heat, that is going to be adding pressure on. But there's a point of like, this is a new beginning, right? So around February 20th, if you're still watching, I'd love you to just like mark that date. If you get any cool ideas, write them down. And then see if you start feeling inspired to move in that direction, because that is what square energy is. It's saying get up and go, and especially in Aries. And maybe you had all of this great growth and system and beautiful sense of nurturance that you've been building since January. Don't feel discouraged or like it's a bad idea if it kind of contradicts it a little bit. Because what it's actually saying is let's take these two energies and make something new. Let's re-envision, let's reimagine, because that's ultimately what Saturn Neptune does. It says, let's picture a whole new structure to reality and go with it, which is really exciting. It's kicking off a huge, huge next era, next chapter. And we're all finding our place in it right now. So, while that might seem really burdensome and massive for some of my folks out there, maybe my earth and water signs are going, no, too much. I want to encourage you that it doesn't have to look like, you single-handedly changing the world. But I think for some of us out there with maybe more of that fire and air energy, we've been ready for something to kick us into gear, to act upon. And so now is our greatest opportunity. 2026 holds so much beautiful potential. And how does this, I'm going to answer another question. How does this North Nile sextile Venus, excuse me, or trine the moon show up in terms of life events? Oh, great question. Okay. Yes, talking to Venus. Okay. So I mentioned this earlier briefly, but basically the question is asking about these Capricorn planets and how they are in sextile with the North Node, specifically Venus, okay, in part of this full moon. I would take that into account. Looking at this full moon, I think absolutely we want to look at all of the planets talking to the sun and moon because they are being affected by this full moon. They're co-present in the sign at least. And especially Mars and Venus are so close to the sun. They're basically the same expression. Some would say, I think that the sun blowing Venus and Mars out because the sun is so gosh dang bright, right? This is what we call the not the cazimi, but the combustion. So we kind of negate Venus and Mars for a second because the sun's blowing them out of proportion. But they're all going to come within a conjunction of each other very soon, within days. And I honestly see all of their expressions kind of wrapped into one. Now, in sextile, this is that collaborative handshake of astrology I was talking about. And so, with the North Node here being in Pisces to Capricorn, this relationship, there's so much beautiful growth here because Pisces can really dream ahead and say, I believe that this is possible. I believe that this is the destination. This is something beautiful we could create and make together, and how can we step toward this place that I've fantasized about and like I think is possible. And Capricorn is the one that actually puts the plan into action. It says, well, you need these steps and we're going to take it step by step like this, and we're going to build the mountain together, and then we're going to assess how long it's going to take, right? And so this building energy together, they're working together, but Pisces is very watery and it's imaginative, where Capricorn's like, give me the instructions, I need to know how to get this done, and then I'll execute how to do it. So with this, you might find as you're receiving the messages from the full moon that this is stepping into a place of, well, I'm North Node, maybe a little uncomfortable with where I'm being challenged to grow towards, but I believe it's possible. I think I could do it. I think that this is a place that I could reach. And with the Capricorn, it's like, well, how would I actually execute this? How would I actually put the steps in motion and start planning toward this? Venus specifically, this could look like around relationships and sort of how to network with some people. Like, I need to meet this person. I need to bridge this connection. I need to make this investment also, because Venus is all of our resources. And then for Mars, this could look like taking the physical steps toward that place. What are the actions I need to take? And Sun is asking, is this in my soul's alignment? So I hope that answered that question. Oh, great question about orb. What degree of orb would you say is close enough to affect placements? It depends on the planet. So, with many of the planets, I look at if it's co-present in a sign, I honestly think that there's some effect there. But that's going to depend on the person, especially like feeling this, interpreting this. So I would look at, this for instance, and say these are all being affected by this full moon, all of these Capricorn planets. Now, if you take a look at Pluto, for instance, Pluto, because it's so far out, it's way, way, way out in the solar system, and it moves incredibly slowly. Pluto's degree of orb that is most accepted, I believe, is around 3 degrees. And so I wouldn't take anything further than 29 degrees of Capricorn and 5 degrees of Aquarius to really say those two are conjunct. So the further out the planet, the tighter the orb needs to be, because it's not making these drastic movements. The moon moves, a sign every 2.5 days. So whatever the moon is co-present with, I believe it's affecting. And Mercury is kind of similar, same thing with Venus. Like, they're moving quick. The sun moves 1 degree every single day. And so with a co-present sign, I would be more willing to take it. But some people say, if it's more than 10 degrees, some people even say if it's more than 5 degrees, that's not that's not going to affect it. Affect and conjunct are two different things as well, and that goes for any aspect. So, for instance, we have the North Node at 12 degrees right now, and that is an exact sextile to Venus. So, is it affecting Mars? I wouldn't necessarily say they're conjunct, but they are pretty dang close. They have a similar, or really, what I should say is their energies are one and the same. They cannot be separate. And I would say that Venus and Mars in this scenario are probably there. It's within 2 degrees. But if Mars was, say, at 24 Capricorn, that would be far for me. I would say that Mars might feel some of that, but it's really Venus's story. Hopefully that answered that question. All right. Well, we have been doing this for about 30 minutes. I'm so grateful to everybody who tuned in to watch. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out my YouTube. So thank you so much for joining me live on YouTube if you've been over there checking this out. And I just want to thank everyone also for who is in my Zoom room right now. I'm going to switch over to this view real quick. There we go. So thank you so much for joining me. I am Cawnawyn Mor, a astrologer, a composer, and an eclectic witch. And in a moment, I'm going to put some links on here, but feel free to follow my website and sign up for my newsletter, Blue Hour. And it's totally free, and you get these links sent to your email so you can join us in the Zoom room. And now I get the pleasure of doing some readings with my group over in Zoom. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time on we're going to have the next Sabbath of Imbolc. On February 1st, I can't believe I'm saying that. That's wild. So on In Bulk, I'll be here with another astrology forecast for you, and I can't wait to share that with you. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time, YouTube. Zoom room, stay in the room. Let's get some readings done. Thank you.